Hi, welcome to the first episode of Spinster Stories, where I spin yarn and tell you spooky stories. So before we get into today's story, we need to learn who Slenderman and the other creepypastas are. So first of all, creepypasta, it's an internet thing. It's like spooky stories and stories about creepy like ghosts and supernatural things. The one we're going to be focusing on for today is Slenderman. So Slenderman he's a tall, slender man. He's a tall, pale man, lives in the woods. He wears a suit all the time, and he doesn't have a face. So what he does is he'll hide in the woods and he'll take children. So really creepy. Um, So, knowing that, we're going to get right on into our story. Starts off with Morgan Geyser. She was friends with Peyton. We'll call her Bella. That was her nickname. So, Peyton and Bella, they were friends, childhood friends, you know, good buddies. And then when they were 12, another girl moved in to the same apartment building as Morgan, also 12, they're all the same age. Her name was Anissa. And Anissa was, kind of more into the spooky thing. She was really fascinated with creepypastas and Slenderman. So when she's hanging out with Morgan and Peyton, she would try to get them to, look at the creepypastas and read the creepypastas with her. And Morgan, she was on board. She would look at all the spooky things with Anissa. Bella, not so much. They freaked her out, so she didn't really like that. So she wouldn't do that with those two girls. And then, over time, Anissa and Morgan just started hanging out more and more and, getting really deep into the creepypastas. So it got to the point where Morgan and Anissa decided that they wanted to go live with Slenderman. And to do that, they wanted to be what they call one of Slenderman's proxies. And to become a proxy, they believed that they needed to kill their friend Bella. So they started planning things out and got really crazy. Um, you know, they got to the point where they invited her for a sleepover and they planned to, kill her when she was asleep. But that ended up not working out. So what they ended up doing is, they went to a nearby park and decided that they were going to kill her in the bathroom. And that ended up being a no-go too. They chickened out, they couldn't do it. So then they decided to try one more time and they started a game of hide and seek. So this was May 31st, 2014, when all this went down. So they started a game of hide and seek with the girls. They lured Bella deep into like this heavily wooded area where they proceeded to stab her 19 times in her arms, legs, torso. And I mean, they got her really good. It was a 5-inch knife, so a pretty substantial knife that the girls had smuggled in. Morgan was the one who did, all the stabbing. And Anissa was there kind of being the director, telling her what to do and really encouraging her to, you know, stab her friend because they needed to go be with Slenderman. Two of the stab wounds ended up going through major organs. One stab wound ended up narrowly missing her artery, like her. Oh, I can't imagine. And then one of the stab wounds, ended up going straight through her diaphragm and into her liver and stomach, and lacerated it. Um, after that, after the horrible, horrible attack, Morgan and Anissa told Bella to just lie still and that they were going to go get help. But they lied. They just told that to Bella so that she would just stay there and bleed out and die. And they just ended up wandering off. And in the meantime, Bella decided she was just going to try to crawl to safety. So she ended up dragging herself all the way to the main road where she found a cyclist. A cyclist found her, called 911, got her in the ambulance. They rushed to the hospital where she ended up in surgery for 6 hours. The operating surgeon ended up saying that if the she was stabbed even a hair's width in either direction, she would have bled out and died in one of the stab wounds. Like, she was so close to death, but she was brave and she pushed through, and she pulled through. In the meantime, while all this is going down, Bella's in the hospital. Morgan and Anissa were found 5 miles away at a furniture store, because they were on their way deep into the national forest to try to find the Slender Mansion. They were looking for Slenderman so that they could go, you know, join all the creepypastas and live in the big Slender Mansion. After that, the girls were held after their police interviews. Like, they both had to go get psychiatric treatment. On October 22nd of 2014, Morgan they discovered she had early onset childhood schizophrenia, which explains why she had a lot of delusions. She was very imaginative. So she believed that, she was talking to Slenderman. She was talking to all these creepy pastas. She also believed that she was talking to Lord Voldemort, Snape, and one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, she's clearly got some issues, and I can see how, getting immersed in all that when she's struggling with mental health, like, I can see how she got sucked into that. Anissa, she doesn't have the schizophrenia, so she doesn't have the delusions, but I know that she was also suffering, with some mental health issues, just not quite as severe as Morgan was. In 2017, they ended up being tried as adults due to the severe nature of their crime. Anissa was charged with attempted second-degree homicide. She pled guilty to attempted second-degree homicide, but the jury found her not guilty by insanity. She ended up being sentenced to 25 years. 3 needed to be confined, so the rest of them she could serve as house arrest or, under supervision. She also needed to be sent to treatment in a state forensic psychiatric institute, and she was required to have communal supervision until age 37. Morgan was charged with attempted first-degree intentional homicide. She was offered a plea. She accepted a plea offer, where she would have no trial if she pled guilty to the attempted first-degree homicide, and if she had a psychiatric evaluation and was committed to a facility. She also was found not guilty by, insanity, and she was sentenced to 40 years in an institution. So the girls, they're hopefully getting the help that they need in the psychiatric institutions while they're serving their sentences. In the meantime, Bella, she still struggles with, PTSD and, anxiety due to the attack she had at the hands of her two, who she thought were her friends. She has mentioned that she still sleeps with a pair of broken scissors under her pillow at night because she's still so scared of what happened. And that brings us to the end of our story. If you have any suggestions for any other spooky stories you want me to cover, or if you have any spooky supernatural stories of your own, I'm more than welcome. I mean, you're more than welcome to send them to me and we can share them in a future video. Thanks for your time, and we hope to see you again next time.